Hey folks, Phil Reames here. As I told you a couple weeks ago, we're going to be doing some really kind of neat and cool new things with technology. Now, we're not doing technology just because we can. There really is a point to all of this. One of our goals has always been to bring you the most interesting and insightful financial intelligence that you're not going to find anywhere else. Okay, I was reading in Proverbs last month, and there was a phrase that really jumped out at me. It kept talking about a multitude of counselors. Now, I've been in this business for over 20 years, and I've met a lot of really, really smart people in this business. And so that phrase, a multitude of counselors, got me to thinking, how could I bring the wisdom of a multitude of the financial planning people that I know to the clients of Reames Financial? And that's when I came up with the idea of using video and doing video interviews. So today, the honor goes to, or maybe it's dubious distinction, I'm not really sure which would be more appropriate, but that honor is going to go to Charles Sizemore as the first interview on the Reames Financial No BS Financial News Network. Okay. Now, Charles is the brains behind the Sizemore Investment Newsletter. He's been a regular contributor to the Fox Business Channel. He's also been quoted or featured in a who's who of business publications, everybody from the Wall Street Journal to Forbes to Barron's and on and on. Now, Charles and I have actually known each other for several years through our association with Harry Dent and the Harry Dent Network. So, Charles, welcome. How you doing today?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. You're welcome. I hear congratulations are in order. I just read in the Wall Street Journal on their Market Watch news site that you were just announced as the 2011 Stock Picker of the Year by InvestorPlace.com. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Well, 2011 was indeed a good year. I recommended Visa in January of last year, and that was by far the best performing stock of all their experts. It was up nearly 50% in a year when it was hard to make money at all in stocks. The S&P 500 was flat, and most of the other stock picks on the list were down for the year. So I was quite happy to score that little win there, and let's hope we can have a nice follow-up here in 2012.
Well, I know we'll be looking forward to reading what you have to say and what you're picking. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your background, if you would, please.
Sure, you bet. Before launching the Sizemore Investment Letter and Sizemore Capital Management, I worked for years with Harry Dent. I was one of his research analysts, contributor to his newsletter. I helped him manage money, and we just had all sorts of collaboration there on demographics and what have you. Went solo 2 years ago, and the rest is history.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about your educational background. You've had quite an education around the world, haven't you?
Been a bit of a gypsy. Did my undergrad at TCU, worked for a couple of years.
Oh, wait a minute. Help us here in the Midwest. What the heck's TCU?
Did you guys not watch football? Texas Christian University.
Oh, we only watch real football. Big Ten, you know?
Oh. Well, TCU will be joining the Big 12, although I guess it's now the Big 11 or Big 13. I don't know what number it actually is now, but whatever. Okay. At any rate, after TCU, worked for a couple of years and then headed overseas and got my master's at the London School of Economics.
Wow, very impressive. Very impressive.
It was a good time. I got intimately acquainted with London's pubs, I'm not ashamed to admit.
You mean you learned to drink warm beer?
Most of the beer is cold, believe it or not. That
really?
is, I think it used to be that the English drank their beer warm, but that was more of a austerity thing in the world wars, and now that they have the money to refrigerate, they do.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Well, you know, here we are in January. We've got a new year ahead of us. From a macro level, what's going on? Where are we at? Where are we headed? What do you see out there? What are some of the risks? Tell us what's going on.
I have one word for you, and it's Europe. That is the only thing that matters right now. I mean, there's all sorts of big macro themes going on. You know, one that you're intimately familiar with is the aging of the baby boomers.
Right.
This is a long-term theme. This is not going to change. The baby boomers are in a deleveraging stage of their lives. They're paying off their debts. They're saving for retirement. That's a big picture deal that's going to last for several years. But now, this year, 2012, the only issue that matters right now is Europe. We live or die by what happens in Europe. And to give you an idea of how confused the situation there is right now, I picked up a copy of the Financial Times this morning, and yes, I am old school. I actually still read a physical newspaper.
Wow.
I know. Go figure, right? And it's the Financial Times, which has that weird color to where it kind of looks like your dog peed on it. I don't quite know what to think of that, but that's the FT. The headline says, European Central Bank sees signs of let up in debt crisis. Now, that was the headline from this morning.
Okay.
Now, clearly they printed that last night because the news today was that France just got downgraded and lost its AAA credit rating, and that more downgrades may be coming for the rest of the Eurozone. So that's how this beginning of the year is going to be. I see it being like this for the next couple months. One day it looks like all is well in the world. Bond yields bond spreads are shrinking. It looks like risk aversion is easing off. And then the next day you'll have something like this where, out of the blue you get a credit downgrade that gets kicks the ant pile real good and gets everybody agitated again. So until there's some sort of fix, and I use the word fix somewhat lightly because there is no fixing Europe's crisis. I mean, there's no fixing debt. You have to repay it or you default on it. And either way, one of the two. But it's a matter of restoring confidence to the market right now. So long as the market believes that Europe has the ability to pay its debts and they're willing to give a not too exorbitant, usurious interest rate on that debt, then we can muddle along. And so that's the question for 2012. Will we muddle along or not? I tend to think we will. I do. Maybe I'm a glassy-eyed optimist, but I do tend to think that this is an interesting opportunity, and that I do think we will see some backing off of this debt crisis. Today's headlines notwithstanding.
Okay. All right. Now, here at Reames Financial, one of our themes has consistently been that in times of turmoil, there are tremendous opportunities created for those that are prepared. So I found it kind of interesting in reading some of your writings that right now you're seeing some opportunities in Spain. And that's one of the things for so many people, they'd be saying, Spain? Come on, how can there be opportunity there? What do you see going on in Spain?
Europe is interesting. And here in the U.S., we have such a large country, such a large economy, such a huge consumer base that our companies do primarily concentrate on our home market. Why would you not? It's huge. Europe's different. All of the countries in Europe are small. If you are a big company and you want to grow, you have to look outside your national borders. Spain's a country not too much bigger than California population-wise. And so they're limited, but they have all of these great old colonial ties with Latin America. And so you have a lot of big Spanish companies that have a huge backdoor market there in South America. One of my absolute favorite stocks for the next 5 to 10 years is a Spanish stock, Telefonica.
Really?
Exactly. I mean, I get that response a lot. Really? Are you nuts?
Really? Yeah.
Are you crazy? What did you put in your drink, Charles? But no, Telefonica, to me, is an ideal stock. Its price has just been slaughtered due to weakness in Spain and due to investor perceptions about Spain. That's great because within a few years, Telefonica is going to get more than half of its revenues from Latin America. Right now, I want to say they get a little over 40% of the revenues from Latin America and about 30% from Spain proper. So, okay, you're getting less than a third of your revenues from the crisis market, but the business is being priced as if all the revenues are from the crisis market. Therein lies an interesting opportunity. I don't know if I told you, I was in Peru for almost a month over the holidays, and I was able to conduct business as if I was still in Dallas because of Telefonica. We had great high-speed internet access, great cell phone usage, everything else, courtesy of Telefonica's local subsidiary. So to me, if you could even get service in a small ranching town in Peru, clearly their infrastructure is there, and they're building out more of it every year, and there's more people buying their service every year. To me, that's great. That those are the opportunities a crisis gives. Okay. If all were well in Europe, you wouldn't get that. You wouldn't get the attractive pricing. You wouldn't be able to buy a company like Telefonica at 7 times earnings and yielding almost 10%. Those kind of deals only exist during a crisis. Now, in a crisis, you can't just go buy anything. Clearly, crises are not. A crisis is a crisis. It's a crisis for a reason, right? Yes, but right. You can. They do create opportunities. You just have to sniff around for them.
Okay, very good. Actually, that was a good segue because my next question had to do with Peru. We hear all about how another one of those opportunities is in emerging markets, and I knew you were in Peru. So tell us a little bit about what's going on in Peru, and then more generally your view on emerging markets.
You bet. When I see Peru, and in particular the smaller town I was in, Paihan, Peru, if you're bored, go look it up on a map, if you can find it on a map. It symbolizes everything that's good and everything that's frustrating about emerging markets. When you walk into the town square, you see cell phones buzzing everywhere. Now, why do you see so many cell phones? Well, because sometimes the landline infrastructure isn't that great. But the nice thing about being in an emerging market where you're kind of starting from zero is that you can leapfrog. If you have bad infrastructure, you just go over it and you go to the next thing. You see a lot of that in India too. In India, the infrastructure is abysmally bad. Half the population, more than half, I believe 600 million people in India, last time I checked, didn't have toilets. They didn't have indoor plumbing at all. I mean, they literally used latrines or their neighbor's backyard. I mean, it really was that bad. Okay. So, and if that's plumbing, I mean, the electricity isn't much better. Farmers in India these days now have cell phone apps. I mean, they have Android phones with apps that give them, the price of whatever commodity they're growing. If they're trying to get a deal, they're planting soybeans or whatever it is they're planting, and they're trying to bring it to market. They can bypass the horrid infrastructure and with modern technology. And you see stuff like that in Peru. You see it in India. You see it all over the world. It's great. Now, what's the downside? Don't drive in Peru, not unless you have a death wish. Don't get in the car. Most of these people have never had formal driving training at all. They just, whenever they got old enough to have a car or the opportunity presented itself, they bought one and taught themselves how to drive. That's scary when you're going at high speeds on the freeway and all that. So, also getting business done can be horribly frustrating at times. I needed to send a fax of all things. I got snagged in an old technology problem there. It cost me, I think, $5 and the better part of a day to track down a fax machine and get them to send a fax for me. There's good and there's bad, but the encouraging thing is it's moving the right direction and it's encouraging. You see optimism and you see people that know that better things are possible. They are pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, and it's particularly refreshing when you consider how depressing it's been here in the U.S. for the last several years. Americans are desperate to hang on to what they have. The idea of growth right now, it just seems like fantasy. So I'm getting somewhat philosophical here, but it's fine. This is why I love emerging markets right now. I mean, this is why I see great opportunity there.
Okay. Now, you recently wrote an article about profiting from the boom in global art, okay? And I found that really interesting. Tell us a little bit about that article.
I should give a little caveat there. I think art itself is generally a bad investment because unless you have just unlimited funds, you're not going to be able to buy the best pieces of art. You're not going to go buy, a Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, the Mona Lisa doesn't come up for sale that often, and if it does, you're not going to be able to afford it. Even if you did, you're not going to be able to afford a diversified portfolio of art. You're going to have all of your eggs in that one basket. So, never mind too. People think the stock market is rigged for insiders. I mean, everyone believes that the stock market is rigged for insiders, and truth be told, it kind of is. But if you think the stock market is rigged for insiders, don't even look at the art market. It is controlled by a very, very small fraternity of experts and collectors, and good luck getting into that loop. That said, the boom in art is indicative of a much bigger macro theme. The surge in the new rich around the world. Even in the United States, which has been in off and on recession for the last 5 years, the wealthy are doing just fine. Luxury car sales doing just fine. Luxury brands doing just fine. High-end homes, actually not that bad right now. It's the average American that's hurting. Wealthy Americans are not right now. All around the world, it is the same story. Another article I cut out from today's Financial Times showed that BMW and Mercedes are both massively expanding their operations in the U.S. now, this year. That's a little bit hard to believe given that the economy is as bad as it is, but they see the demand there. So, yes, you have great macro themes here, and it ties back to emerging markets as well. As emerging markets, it's sort of the wild, wild west of capitalism there, and you have new millionaires popping up all the time, new millionaires who like to spend money. So, to me, when I see the art market looking frothy, I'm not necessarily saying, hey, go run out and bid for a painting. I'm just saying this is a sign of great underlying themes that you can invest in. You can buy luxury auto stocks. You can buy the stocks of brands. You can buy, Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton. You can buy that. You can buy Coach. You could buy expensive scotch. I mean, there are unlimited opportunities in that sphere.
Well, it's funny you mentioned luxury homes or high-end homes, and I was just reading the Toll Brothers report, and their hottest building area right now is actually New York City in the high-end homes and condos in the city there, and I found that quite interesting.
I can believe it.
Are there any other opportunities out there that really kind of jump off the page at you and get you excited?
Right now, one of the things that excites me is something that's remarkably boring. I still like dividends right now. If you look at last year, the only return you made as an investor, if you just bought and held the S&P 500 for the year, your only return was dividends.
Right.
That's it. Otherwise, the market was completely flat. I don't know what the future will hold exactly. No one does. But when you look at a year like 2012, I think there's great opportunities, but there's also a lot of risk, and I think there will be some volatility. While you're waiting for things to sort themselves out, it's nice to get paid. I love dividend-paying stocks right now. I think that is a great investable theme. Right now, it's not hard to assemble a large, diversified portfolio full of boring blue-chip stocks that will pay you more than what you can get in the bond market. So that's another theme I love right now. I'm following it. I see that being a great investable theme for the next year.
All right. Last question. Let's make you famous. What do you think is going to be the biggest surprise that nobody else is going to see coming? Okay, if you're right, we're going to have it on the record right here, and we'll make you the next Meredith Whitney or Nouriel Rubini. So, what's the big surprise out there that nobody's going to see coming? Any guess?
The big surprise? I think the euro will actually end higher on the dollar. By the end of 2012, I think the euro will actually go higher on the dollar. Now, it's not that I'm wildly bullish on the euro. I just think that it's massively oversold, and I do think we're going to get a respite in the European crisis. And I think a year from now, people will be sitting pretty in European assets.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, folks, as I mentioned, Charles is the brains behind the Sizemore newsletter. Charles, tell us a little bit about your newsletter, the focus of the newsletter, and that type of thing, please.
Sure. I take sort of a funnel approach here. I find a big picture macro theme, like some of the things we've been discussing today, and then I drill down. I find ways to invest in these big picture themes. I look for individual stocks, ETFs, bonds, what have you, that makes sense. And a recent example is I recommended Daimler to my readers. For those not familiar with the auto industry, Daimler is the parent company of the Mercedes-Benz brand. To me, this is this is where several great themes converge together. It is first and foremost a luxury stock. It caters to the wealthy. It is also a backdoor way to get exposure to emerging markets. China already is the biggest consumer of the Mercedes S-Class. They're a high-end flagship, they're mafioso-looking big car, right?
Sure.
China is by far their biggest market for that, and that's continuing to grow. And China's not their only market for that. Clearly, there is a lot of demand for that around emerging markets around the world. So it's a a luxury stock. It's an emerging market backdoor stock. It's also a contrarian stock because it is domiciled in Germany, in Europe. So to me, this is great. If you have any respite in the European crisis and these other themes stay on track, and they should, I consider these durable themes that have years to run, this could be a very, very high-flying stock. So that's the kind of opportunity I look for. I look for those macro themes. It's nice if I can get multiple macro themes in one investment play, and then I drill down like that.
Okay, very good. Well, folks, we read Charles Sizemore, and you may want to also. In the newsletter, just below this video, there is a link to Charles's website, so you can check out his newsletter, and we really would encourage you to do so. Charles, I appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today. Now, are you going to be in Phoenix in the spring for the Denton Conference?
I'm certainly planning to be.
All right, very good. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for joining us. All right, thanks for joining us today, Charles. Folks, I hope you enjoyed our interview with Charles Sizemore. That wraps up the first ever Reames Financial video interview. What'd you think? Was it good? Was it worthwhile? Did you learn a lot? If so, then please forward it to a friend or two. Also, would you like to see this become a regular feature? If so, then please let us know. I've got a couple of other great guests already in mind for February and March. Now, until next time, folks, protect your wealth.